Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Championship Leadership Podcast. And today, I'm really excited. We have our guest today. He is a former U.S. Navy SEAL. He 11 years of faithful service. He left kind of in the prime of his career, which I definitely know was difficult for him to do. But the reasons behind it were just as powerful to go and to start a family. And so currently he serves as the director of military programs with Higher Grounds. It's an organization that helps veterans through therapeutic recreation. So I'm excited to talk more about that. You can find our guest today, Monty Heath. He lives in Virginia Beach, and you can find him at he's got a website, The Full Monty, and that's MOTY.net. You can follow him on Instagram at Monty_Heath. And also check him out. He's got a podcast that's powerful as well called The Full Monty Podcast. You can find that on all the incredible places that you find podcasts today. So with that, I want to introduce our guest today, Monty Heath. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you've listened to a few episodes. So the first question I love to ask each of our guests is, the name of the podcast, Championship Leadership. So what does that mean to you when you hear championship leadership?
Yeah, championship leadership. So first of all, championship says some things. I think it means that you're on the top of your game. NFL, Super Bowl, Major League, World Series, Olympic gold, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. So it means that you're on the top of your game. You're not in the JV league. So you've put a lot of time and effort into getting there. I think the leadership portion also says a lot. I think leadership is a lot of things. It's obviously influence, not to be confused with manipulation, or sort of the shadow side of influence is manipulation. I think we need to lead from the front by example. I think we need to put the mission first. Though the older I get, I wonder if we should put people first. We can talk about that, but yeah. I think you do have to have a mission focus. You've got to have some knowledge and experience. And I think the most important aspect, or in my opinion, one of the most important aspects of championship leadership, is not allowing your ego to kind of screw you over. And how that happens is people with high egos and overbearing egos, they don't surround themselves with people that are better than them at something or smarter than them, because they see them as threats. And the problem with that is we all have weaknesses. And if we don't address our weaknesses or find other people that fill in for those weaknesses, we're not going to create a championship team, and we're not going to be a championship leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you said a lot there that I love. And yeah, I definitely want to get into that people first versus mission first conversation. Well, I'll talk a little bit more maybe about the ego though. I go back to my time as a very young lieutenant, and really just a kid still in life, and not a lot of experiences. And it can be easy for that ego to be in the way. I mean, maybe you could talk about your experiences in the SEAL teams, and is that something that you experienced from certain leaders? Is it, how was that handled and dealt with? I can imagine how it would have been handled and dealt with, but I would love to hear, some of those experiences. Maybe it's something that you saw in yourself as a leader coming up in the military.
Yeah, sure. So I'll get into me for sure. And the quick answer is I had an overinflated ego, and I had a lack of humility. Not really, no big surprise, coming out of the SEAL teams without humility or empathy for that matter. But back to you and what you said, I think one of the reasons why the military works so well, even when they put in a young, fresh, first, second lieutenant, is because they have senior, NCOs around them, right? Non-commissioned officers and senior leaders around them that have the experience. So yes, the guy with the gold or silver bars is in fact in charge, but his or her decisions must be made, or they better be made, with the input of the guys and girls that have the most experience on the ground. So where, leaders flop in the military is where they assert their rank without gaining any of the knowledge and experience from the enlisted guys below them. Yeah. So back to the teams. Yeah. So I had an ego for sure. I wasn't much of a leader in the SEAL teams. I was more of a doer. I was very good at doing, very good at tactical things, a little bit of
Uh-huh.
strategy. But in terms of leading other people, it was more by example, because it sure as F wasn't, it wasn't me investing my time and energy into them, which is another major aspect of, leadership, of good leadership. We've got to put time and effort into our people, which brings up that old, I don't know who started it first or who asked the question, but it's kind of that idea of, what if we train our people and they leave us, right?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
better question is what if we don't train our people and they stay,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That's right.
So, and furthermore, in every organization that we're ever in, there's going to be 100% turnover, right? Nobody lives forever.
Yeah.
Everybody will leave the corporation or organization they are working for. The question is when. And we all know turnover is expensive. But the point of that is to understand that 100% of people are going to turn over. So therefore, get that out of your head that we can't train people because they're going to leave. Yeah, everybody's going to leave. Even the CEO will leave. He'll die or sell it or turn it into a publicly traded company or whatever. But everybody leaves.
Yeah, no, that's those questions that you ask, right? Really just to kind of shift the perspective of, very quickly for people if they're really kind of open to it. So yeah, powerful to be like, hey, we can either lift everyone up and so that we continue to rise. And if someone ends up leaving because of that, that's like our organization is just set up so much better than we were before versus if we have this scarcity mindset or being insecure and like trying to hold everybody down, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your story. Like I said, I've listened to a few podcasts that you've been on, and I know, childhood, as you said, was not the greatest, and you had a unique experience right before getting out of graduating high school and going into buds with the swimming team and failing PE class and how that was a big thing for you. But yeah, maybe you could just kind of fill us in on who you are, like the path that you've been on to get you to where you are today.
You've done your homework. That's
Yes, sir.
that's good. Good job. I think that was something you brought up there was a pivotal part in my life. And the reason why it was pivotal was because something was taken away from me, or better said, I lost it. I screwed up and it was taken away from me, or I caused it to go away.
Yeah. Was
And
it
why
hard for
that?
you to see that in the beginning?
Yeah, no, I didn't see that then, not at all. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure I had the idea that it was everybody else's fault on the
Yeah,
planet's but
sure.
mine, but that's
Sure.
not how the world works. And as I grew, and you're laughing, so I know
Yeah.
we're in control of everything. And this kind of ties into that victimhood mentality of, yeah, you can say things happen to you and this guy screwed you over, or you can't believe that happened, or whatever. But everything I've ever screwed up in my life, it's come from me. It's come from within. No, I can't blame any of my shortfalls on anybody else. So back to that story. But so I had some success in 11th grade with the swim team, breaststroke. I was like 10th in the state, which was interesting for me because I wasn't good at anything because I didn't put forth the effort in anything. I didn't get it yet. I didn't really get it until I was in buds, until I was in SEAL training. So back into high school, I'm doing all the sports. I'm not really putting any time and effort into them. I'm not taking them seriously. 11th grade, I half take seriously the swim team, get some good success, like 10th in the state in breast. Senior year rolls around, I'm putting more effort in, still not 100%, but maybe, I don't know, 85%. And I'm going undefeated. I'm setting school records. I'm just excelling, and excelling not even at 100%. So fast forward, right before the state championships in my undefeated year, I get thrown off the swim team. How do you do that? You don't show up to gym class. You don't play kickball. You call Mr. Gutterson, Gutter Joke, the red-nosed boozer. And the school's scholastic director tosses me off the swim team. And it was the first time in my life where I realized, wow, if I want something, I can't half-ass it. I've got to I got to go all in, 100% dedication, 100% take it seriously, 100% on everything, or this could happen to me again. And if that didn't happen to me, maybe I wouldn't have had the right mindset, and maybe I would have quit in SEAL training.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's I mean, the timing of certain things. I say this a lot. Like I look at where I am today and what I'm doing, and now I can look back at everything that has happened in the past and be like, man, that all aligns. That makes sense why I went through that, why I did that, and how it helps me to be who I am. But in the moment, like, yeah, I'm not seeing it. I have no clue. All of those different things that go on in our lives. So it's very interesting to see how those things fall into place for all of us, and we
Yeah.
seem to all have these kinds of stories, right? So. Tell me a little bit more about higher grounds and in the role that you have there and what you guys are all about, what you're doing. And, I always like to talk about vision, right? I think great leaders, I'm a football guy, so I kind of go with, even though I'm not a Patriots fan, not an Alabama fan, but I can respect Bill Belichick and Nick Saban for the level that they have performed at over the time period that they've been able to continue to do it. And so they obviously have this incredible vision, this championship leadership vision, and not only vision, but courage to be able to take action on that when it's not like no one else can see it, right? Because they're not at that level. They're looking at them like they're crazy. Why are they doing this? What's going on here? And yet obviously something's working and they're seeing that. What for you, maybe as you talk about higher grounds and in the direction you guys are going and what you're doing? Like,
Yeah, well, let me touch on the football stuff you talked about. I'm a big football fan as well,
Yeah.
or at least I was. I actually haven't watched football in 3 years since it got political, but
Yeah.
I still have appreciation for it. And you mentioned Belichick. I'm not a Patriots fan either, but I respect him and I respect Tom Brady
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're the ultimate leaders. They don't rest on their laurels. They've never arrived. You're always training. And by the way, that's the secret sauce of the SEAL teams. If there is one,
Yeah.
we just train harder than everybody else. And we just do ridiculous scenarios so that when you get to war, it's really not that big of a deal because you've already trained harder beforehand. But back to football, they make the best of their people. They don't need a big name person. Yeah, they had Tom Brady, but guess what? When Tom Brady was hurt, I think they still had 12 wins with some other football.
Yeah, they did.
With another quarterback that you don't even like. I don't even remember his name. You make the most of your people. Those guys also make the best in-game decisions. They make the best in-game changes. They are the most flexible. They are the most adaptable. And that's another thing about the SEAL teams that I think is part of the secret sauce is the adaptability, right? So if you go into a game or a mission with a plan and within the first minute, the plan falls apart, you don't have to panic. You just make in-game adjustments. And that's what those guys do better than anybody else.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to higher ground. First of all, I think it's important to note higher ground is all about helping people. And I wasn't interested in helping people until about 5 years ago. I didn't give a crap about humanity until about 5 years ago. And my hook.
What was that from?
Just you mentioned it earlier. Childhood. Like I didn't have a great childhood. I had no mentors, no positive mentors. I didn't seek any mentors. I didn't want any mentors. I mean, I started drinking heavily at 12. My dad was a piece of work that we could talk about for hours. My mom wasn't really around for me. She had a younger daughter to raise. So I was kind of on my own at 6.5 and then really on my own at 12 and it just went haywire, but back to higher ground and humanity. So I'm working at 624,000 acre eco resort. So I'm running that and I'm seasonal. So I can have the winter off, so to speak. So I'm up in Sun Valley, Idaho. And I start to volunteer as a Special Olympics ski instructor. And that was my hook to humanity. That was the first time I actually gave a crap about other human beings in a positive manner. And it was the Special Olympics skiing. And I think that also started to upgrade my humility. I didn't have a whole lot of humility before then. I was sort of sick of myself, sick of my ego, sick of my lack of empathy and humility. And I sort of, and this was not conscious. This wasn't a conscious decision for me to go into this sector. But looking back, it filled the hole. It filled the gap that I had. And that was, empathy, humility, compassion, giving a crap about humanity. So anyway, I went from Special Olympics ski instructor to veterans. And the reason I went to veterans in general and veterans with traumatic brain injuries and post-traumatic stress disorder as opposed to like super cool, you know, the Navy SEAL Foundation, the SEAL Legacy Foundation. There's a ton of spec ops type foundations that I could have joined, and
Yeah.
I have done some things with. I have volunteered some of my time with them. But the point is I wanted to sort of, you know, kiss the feet of the masses, so to speak. Like I wanted to just, I didn't want to be all super cool and elite. That would have been more of the old. I wanted to be with everybody and to be with, you know, any serviceman that had issues. I wanted to help. So that's where I am now. So Higher Ground helps people with traumatic brain injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder, and military sexual trauma on the military side. And I ran the military side in Idaho for 5 years. And there's another side of Higher Ground, which of course is the people with disabilities of all ages. And that's the Special Olympics and, you know, cognitive disabilities and all that. So yeah, Higher Ground, it's a 1 week therapeutic recreation program. What the heck is that? That is doing some type of an event, whether it's fly fishing, skiing, whitewater rafting. The event doesn't really matter. It's the process. And then later in the day, we talk about it, talk about the process, talk about what it's like to be back in a group and to be with like-minded individuals and be back in a tribe. And we have 5 days of real intentional content that we give them. Plus there's a mental health professional on site in case it goes deep. And we follow up with these folks for 3 years. So out of the 50,000 or so veteran service organizations in our country, I think Higher Ground is like top 3 or 5. It's really good.
Yeah, that's incredible. That sounds amazing. So is this something that, like, are these events or these programs, are they all over the country?
So we're currently doing camps in 6 or 8 states. We have brick and mortar facilities in Idaho, Los Angeles, and outside of Buffalo.
Okay.
And so, so I'm actually a different title. I forgot, I didn't tell you this when we were chit chatting beforehand, but I'm actually now the director of strategic partnerships. So all that means is, it's my job, and they've, you know, I came up with this and they said, yes, I want to put on camps in all 50 states. There's plenty of veterans in all 50 states. So that's my charter. My first 2 goals or targets are Virginia Beach and Dallas. We'll do hopefully we'll do a camp in fall of 2020 in both places, and then just start sprinkling them across the globe, across the country at least.
Yeah. And, well, that's offline maybe, but I'd love to talk about that. So so with that, I mean, we can talk about online or offline, but anybody you know that's hurting, send them my way, and it's free door to door. It's an amazing program. Yeah, sounds amazing. I love it. So, what's I know you talked about early on not having a lot of mentors and people maybe there to kind of really help you through some of these times that you were going through, and maybe you wouldn't have even been open to it, right? Who knows, right? But do you have those people in your life now? I mean, I think it's always important, you know, probably till the day we die, that we always have those people that we can go to and lean on and for support and advice and guidance. I'm
still very resistant in person. I'm still very resistant, and I haven't quite dug into that yet. I mean, I think I know the basics of it. The basics are everything we described, and you know, I'm 44 and I had about 40 years of programming where that wasn't what I wanted. But to where it started for me was I was doing executive protection, and I was down near the Mexico border. And I was driving in a truck around this ranch. It's a 25,000 acre ranch, and it's right near the border. It's actually so close to the border that it's like 40 miles north of the border and 40 miles east of the border, like way down in the tip of Texas.
Oh, wow.
So they have illegals coming through their property constantly. Most of them are just, you know, looking for a better life, but some of them are got backpacks of drugs and guns and everything else.
Yeah.
So so we need to be there. And they're billionaires, so we're there. So anyway, I'm driving around in a vehicle at 2 a.m. You know, I probably had my 5th Red Bull, throwing a dip in, listening to Metallica, just driving around. And I'm like, there's got to be something better than this. There's just this isn't it. I'm sort of just wasting away here. And I started to listen to like Jim Rohn. So Jim Rohn was the first guy that I would consider a mentor. Yeah. Even though it was it was an audio, it wasn't in person, but that was good enough. And he was saying these things to me that I was like, wow, that's so true. That can't not be true. That what he is saying is just universal. So I started to kind of dig into him, and, you know, I sprinkled in some Tony Robbins and got a little Zig Ziglar in there, and just started listening to all these type of people. that really upgraded my mindset. So in terms of mentors, they've been pretty much audio,
Yeah, I love it.
not so much in person, but I'm sure sooner or later I'll get to that in person aspect of it.
Sure, you bet. You talked about, like, I don't know, I think you said it was about 5 years ago, maybe a lot less self-centered focus, and started to really kind of, open up to how you could serve others and impact and lift others up. I'm just curious, and by no means I need you to get like in depth or, give away deep, dark secrets, but just how has that impacted you personally, relationally with, whether that's inside your marriage, with kids, with, just friends, and like, how did that shift impact how you showed up, just with those that are close to you?
Hugely. So I wasn't, where do I go with this? There's so many places to go with it. I wasn't interested in conversation. I wasn't interested in connecting with other human beings. I had this epiphany just a couple of days ago, actually. I've never had a problem with presence doing. I've always had a problem with presence talking or being. So the reason why I was very good at what I did in the SEAL teams or riding a dirt bike or whatever I'm doing is because I can be in the event 100%. I can be 100% present and not think about anything else that's distracting and just laser focus on the task at hand. But that hasn't been the case up until recently with communication and relationship and connection. It never crossed my mind. I was literally 43 years old. Last year, I came to the conclusion. I was like, somebody said it. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Somebody said, sometimes people have conversations just to connect. And I'm like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, people. It's funny. My wife laughed at me. She's like, dude, I knew that at 6. I'm like, well, I didn't figure it out until I was 43, Right. Sorry. So it showed up big time.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you. Man, I had another follow-up to that. That's all right. It'll come to me. So coming out of it's been a while since. When was it that you came out of the teams?
It's been a while. 04. So I was in 93 to 04.
So what have you done to continually, like, from just a physical standpoint? Like, I'm always challenging myself. I'm run 100 miles and do some of that stuff, and I'm always looking for something to push me, because that really, it drives me. It gives me something to stay fit, to stay active, to stay healthy, to be example to my kid. Like, there's a ton of reasons why I love to have some challenges in front of me. I'm just curious for you, like, what do you do physically to stay challenged and stay fit and all that?
Yeah, well, I'd say I go in phases. I'm definitely a phases type guy.
Yeah.
When I left the Navy, I said I would never run again. And I meant it. And I don't think I did run for, I don't know how many years, but then I started to get back into it, and I got into marathons, and I did an adventure race, and got into triathlons, and I will always work out as long as I can work out. There's probably some vanity in there. There's also, quite frankly, an aspect of, I used to get my ass beat a lot as a kid from either, my dad or elsewhere. So I always want to train. I always want to be physically dominant. I believe in martial arts, whether you use them or not. I think everybody needs to know how to fight.
Yeah.
So for me, it's inherent. I love working out. I love every aspect of it. I love how hard it is. I love how hard squats are. I enjoy almost puking. So that'll never go away. I think what I do just goes in phases. But you bring up ultras and long events, and I think what all that is training the mind appropriately. Just training the mind to shut the F up. Because the mind will come up with a million different reasons as to why you should stop.
Yeah, definitely.
I got to interview Mark Allen once, one-on-one, and this was like 10, 15 years ago when I was running this course, and I hired him to train the trainer, and he was like the top Ironman athlete. Like he won it like 6 or 7 times. So I got to ask him, like, dude, tell me the deal? Like, how did you dominate? And the physical aspect of dominating was heart rate training. Like, he was the first pro to bring in heart rate training to the scene. And they joked him at first because he's pedaling his bike at like a 135 beats per minute, and everybody's passing them and joking him. But
did he work with Phil Maffetone?
I don't know. I don't know if he did.
Okay. Yeah, I think but anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, he's riding along at 135 and they're joking him. But 6 or 9 months later, he's passing them at 135 and they're probably at 150 or 160. But anyway, the mental aspect was, he's like, look, you swear on your show, by the way? Are you? Yeah. I've already said ass once, but
yes, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
He goes, you have to tell your mind to shut the fuck up. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. He's like, your mind will tell you, like, man, you've already done this race. You've already won this race. What are you trying to prove? And oh, by the way, your feet hurt, your ankles hurt, your shins hurt, your knees hurt. You've already beat that guy. You've already beat that guy. You've already beat that guy. What are you trying to prove? Knock this nonsense off. And he had to just tell his mind to shut the F up, because that's just how our minds work. Our minds, I know Tom Shea talks about this, our minds they'll give us a bunch of reasons why to stop. It doesn't want us to do what we want it to do, and we have to make it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And no, I'm going to use it because it does. It never shuts off. It's always trying to get us to stop, and for whatever reason, right? But yeah, shut the fuck up. I love it.
Yeah.
So, I want to respect your time here, but I do want to ask. This is something that I ask most guests: is what's a moment in your life where critical moment, turning point, where you did choose to go on the path that you did, and that's got you where you are today, but could have very easily had you some completely different path in life. Is there one that sticks out to you? I think there's so many lessons that we can learn, and the listeners can, especially when they're in that moment themselves right now, trying to choose like what's the right thing. And just kind of the battling with that. Is there a moment that sticks out to you that was really kind of crucial?
Yeah.
Has you where you are today?
I think for me, it was diving into my weaknesses. It was either consciously or subconsciously, diving into my weaknesses. So, I could have, for example, I got out of the SEAL teams and went into defense contracting, and I was with a bunch of other SEALs. It was very familiar. It wasn't a jump. It was a different sector, but really it was the same exact thing as I was doing, and there was no growth there, right? So, you only grow out of the comfort zone. So there's no growth in the comfort zone. So what I would say to you is do an inventory of yourself, take down all your strengths and weaknesses, and then really focus on the weakness side and really dig into those weaknesses and look at them and tear them apart and ask yourself, do you want to spend the time and energy and effort to upgrade those weaknesses, or do you want to hire them out? So if, and that's good for a business. That's good if you're in corporate, whatever. If you can't or don't want to upgrade certain aspects of your life, find them externally, right? We can't all be masters of everything, right? Yeah. We can't be super detail oriented and be super, 30,000 view oriented. Yeah, you can do both, but normally you're good at one or the other. So the point of saying all that is I would say, look at your strengths and weaknesses, dive into your weaknesses and upgrade them, or acknowledge that you have that and they're probably not going to change, and that you need to seek external help.
Yeah. Something in what you just said made me think of this. Coming back to the decision to get out of the Navy and out of the SEAL teams was so that you could start a family, right? And but what what's popping up for me is like, man, you were still very like self-centered at that point, and so that's like a weird, in a way, it's a weird thought to be like, I'm going to go and create this family, and like, I don't know, does that make sense in what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and it does. It does. I was already starting to get sick of myself and sick of my ego, sick of my ways. And if I was completely selfish, I would have stayed in, because I did leave in my prime, and I left the pinnacle, the best command you can get to. But I did everything I wanted to do, and I can tell you that offline or some other time. The way my deployments worked out, I nailed everything I wanted to do, and then it was time to get out. I've never stuck around too long. I've never. I guess if I was like a boxer, I would probably leave in my prime. I think I I think I would have the wherewithal to leave in my prime versus sticking around 6 or 8 more years and getting my head caved in, you know? So I think it's easier. I think it's better to leave early than late.
And that's a difficult thing for people to do. I mean, I think, it's understandably, when you're at that pinnacle, you want to continue to feed that. A lot of people do, right? Or you see them leave and then come back. So it's interesting. Thank you for.
Well, here's another aspect of honesty that most wouldn't say, and I haven't really said until now. I was also done with the job in terms of, so I had 5 deployments, but I had 5 combat deployments, but only really 3 of them were what I consider combat. But anyway, on those combat deployments, the first deployment, I wanted to die in a blaze of glory. Like, I wanted to be the guy to jump on their grenade. I wanted to be the guy to die, to die on laying on a pile of brass and saving the day. And because I had that, and it wasn't healthy in the mind. I wasn't yet cognizant of mind health and being mentally healthy. So first deployment, I wanted to die in a blaze of glory. Second deployment, I thought that idea was kind of stupid. And then the third deployment, I really thought that idea was stupid, and I wanted to have kids. So I was pretty much done. So, I mean, I've got buddies that have done 13, 15, 18 deployments.
Yeah.
And I salute them and take my hat off. Obviously I don't know if I could, but I didn't do that many.
Yeah. And thank you for that. Appreciate it. What are 1 or 2 things that you could leave with the listeners that, if they were to implement today into their life, it would help move them forward today?
Yeah. I'll say one thing, and that is, you can do anything. The difference between, most people nowadays have heard the different, growth mindset, fixed mindset. Those are just terms that a woman wrote a book about. I think that the point is if you come up with a goal in your mind and you start to think about that goal, and a roadblock occurs or an obstacle occurs that stops the process, you've got a fixed mindset. Yeah. If you're thinking about a goal and you get infatuated with that goal and you think, I'm going to complete that goal come hell or high water, you've got a growth mindset. I think these are just my opinions. And the point of that is have the awareness. So if you have these ideas and you start to run through the ideas and you come to a roadblock, have the awareness to be like, whoa, I'm now focusing on an obstacle and I'm not focusing on the goal. I'm not focusing on the mission. I'm focusing on something that might stand in my way, and it stops the process. So awareness is the first thing. And then after awareness is to set smaller goals, tiny goals. So if you want to run a marathon, but you're only, you can only run a mile, well, then run a mile, and then run a mile in 10 steps, and then run a mile in 50 steps, and then run a mile in 100 steps, and then run a mile and a half. So you make these little tiny goals, and you realize that you can do exactly what you want to do, but you've got to have that mindset, that growth mindset, that mission focus, that I will get this done come hell or high water, period. So that's what I would say it is know that you can do anything you put your mind to. And that's just not some bullshit statement. It's for real. Totally. If you put enough time and effort into it, you can do it. And don't let anything or anybody, including yourself, and that's probably the most important, tell you different.
Yeah. That's powerful. Thank you. And I say the same thing with, some of the things that I've done, and by no means are they earth shattering, but like, man, if I can do this, like literally anyone can go and do this. And so, it just falls right in line with exactly what you're saying. So I appreciate you taking some time to be here today. But is there anything else that we can, ways we can follow you or support you and what you guys got going on?
Yeah, I mean, you can check out www.highergroundusa.org and check them out and maybe, donate a little bit to them. They could use it. Yeah. Vet2CEO.org is another cool organization that teaches entrepreneurship skills to veterans for free. Both of these are for free, by the way, to the end user. And those are a couple of nonprofits. And then check out my podcast. And you can come on my podcast. I'd love to have you on board.
I would love to. Yeah, it would be great. Let's make it happen.
All right. Cool.
And And yeah, hit subscribe to that, the full Monty. So appreciate you. Thanks, Monty, for being here, and have a great day, man.
My pleasure. Appreciate it. Thank you.